Hello and welcome to the 48th episode of When I Was Your Age, a podcast celebrating the careers, callings, and creativity of some friends of mine. I'm your host, Roland Parker, and as always, it's a joy, a pleasure, and a treat to have you here. Today's guest is Channing Bruce, and before we bring Channing into the stream, we've got some housekeeping as always. Make sure that you follow the Instagram at WIWYA pod. Thank you guys so much for the support. At the time of recording, we are at 1,579 followers. If you are here for the first time, consider giving us a follow. You can listen to episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and you can watch episodes on Spotify and YouTube. If you have been here before, thanks for coming back and make yourself at home. All the links to those places are available in the link tree in the Instagram bio. And without further ado, we'll bring Channing on. Channing, how's it going with you? What you been up to?
Hi. Yes, I worked a shift in the emergency room last night, so I am freshly awoken here now at noon.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, well, we love to see it. I imagine that is one of the more difficult components of your job is the variability in scheduling and like the late night work and everything like that.
Yeah, it can be challenging. I feel like this month specifically, I'm in the emergency room, and so the shifts are pretty sporadic. But otherwise, I feel like usually it's I'm all during the day or all at night with an occasional 28-hour shift mixed in. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare if I'm being honest. But we appreciate the work that you're doing. So if you guys aren't already, make sure that you follow Channing on Instagram. We've got the Instagram handle up there in the stream, and we'll have it added in the notes for the episode as well. Channing, did you ever have any more embarrassing usernames or handles? A theme for us lately has been like Webkinz accounts or like things like that, like Club Penguin and that ilk. Any embarrassing kind of usernames or Gmails or things like that?
I don't feel like anything official, but I did have a Club Penguin account that like included the name of a boy who I thought was very cute at summer camp, which was embarrassing. My dad was like, "What is his name?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just thought it was creative."
I love that. That's great. Yeah, I am hoping, I'm kind of holding out hope for like a Club Penguin documentary at some point. I think that would be a nice thing to see and review and kind of flood back all those memories. Well, I've got some get to know you questions that I'd like to ask you. Where are you from and where do you currently live?
I am from Birmingham, Alabama. We went to Vestavia together. I lived there from age 4 to when I finished med school, other than when I went to Auburn, and currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Excellent. Let's see. What do you do?
I am a first-year resident, an OBGYN resident, which is a physician. You're a physician, but you're still in your training to become your specialty, which mine will be OBGYN. And so I'm in my first of 4 years at a hospital in Charlotte.
Excellent. How old are you?
I'm 26.
Perfect. What piece of media are you currently enjoying? So book, podcast, music, TV show, what have you been diving into as of late?
I feel like I'm kind of a creature of habit because when everything else in life changes so much, I stick to my typical like true crime podcast, Crime Junkie and Morbid. And then I recently started watching the show The Pitt, which doesn't really help me get away from work, but it's on HBO Max and it's about an emergency room and it's 14 episodes throughout a 14-hour shift. So it's kind of like the show 24, but it's like each hour is an hour of their shift. And that's been fun to watch because they have like medical students, residents, attendings, and like everyone in the show. So it's a lot like work, but it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I've seen some promo for it. I've not watched it yet, but we had some similar thinking with. I had a few people who've worked in kitchens as, working as chefs, and similar experience with the bear, where
Yeah.
they're like, I'm not really getting away, but I do, like, there's things that I look at and see. It's like, oh yes, I identify with this situation. So you can come to like appreciate it, even though you're not really getting away in that sense.
Right.
What is something you'd consider a luxurious necessity? And what I mean by that is something that maybe blurs the line between a need and a want. Maybe it's really integral in your routine. The example I always give is a nice cup of coffee. It's something I'm not willing to give up, but I could probably do without if you made me. So is there anything that comes to your mind with that?
Yeah, I think right now it's expensive is my Pure Barre classes that I pay for, but it makes me work out at least 8 times a month, which is a lot these days. And so it's worth the money, but I could do without it. I could do the similar workouts at home, but I choose not to.
Yeah, gotcha. And I'm assuming this is something where an instructor is up, like leading like the class. Yeah. I can totally see how my wife has really started to get into a lot of the classes that they have at our gym. And I can totally see how just having like that consistency of like someone up there leading, it's a different kind of feel, versus like trying to come up with things on the spot. It's a good way to stay consistent, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any bits that you're doing? So like running jokes with maybe you and your spouse or friends at work or family members. For us lately, we've been saying a lot to our girls. It's just been like whenever they're really big on no. So it's just yes, like responding back like in the same tone of voice, kind of echoing to them. So anything like that for you?
I don't think I can think of anything. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like at work, we probably like imitate our attendings too much when we talk to each other. But that, I don't know. I can't think of anything specific.
I would call that a bit the imitating the attending. Yeah, I could totally see, because I think that's very tied into your identity like at work, and it's like it. I often think of a bit as you're doing it for maybe a much smaller audience than like if you were doing it for stand up. Like I'm doing it for only myself or one other person or like my immediate coworkers, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, then I guess that works.
There we go. Okay, so this next question I like to get to ask because we get to compile all the answers into a playlist. But if you were to replace the national anthem with any song, could have been a song you had on an iPod Shuffle back in the day, could be a song that's on heavy rotation now. What song do you think that would be? And tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, gosh.
I can give some good examples.
Yeah, give me some good ones.
Sure. So ones that I've seen that I have really enjoyed is I had a professor in college. His answer was "This Land Is Your Land" by Woody Guthrie. I thought that was a good, like, actual good replacement. Well fitting and well thought out, and it evokes nice feelings of the country, right? But I've also had Super Bass by Nicki Minaj. So like it's a wide range of feelings that you can go for there.
Okay. I think I'm going to say Feminine Nomenon by Chappell Roan. I feel
Excellent.
like these days working in OB-GYN and I don't know, medicine's becoming more female dominant. That's just kind of how my life feels. And I feel like pretty representative maybe of where the country will go one day.
Excellent. I think that's a great answer. If you want to hear Channing's answer and everybody else's, then you can go to the Weewa, and it's like rah, and then like like an eagle screech with an bald eagle and American flag playlist. That's you can find that in the link tree.
Oh,
But
wait,
we like,
can I give another like
oh, absolutely.
answer? I'm thinking about Beyonce's Cowboy Carter and American Requiem, the like opening song of the album. That's pretty good.
Okay.
She mentions Gadsden, Alabama in it, so I feel like it's pretty good.
Nice. Okay. All right. That's a
Two. I
we
got
got it
two.
in.
Sorry.
No, that's great. It's a that's going to continue to build, and we love getting to see that. No, that's perfect. I had I think episode 2 or 3, Jasmine Norris. I think she gave like 4 answers. So that was a great thing to see. And she said like, if I'm giving all of these, then you've got to play them all in succession. So like, you know, standing at a baseball game or something, you got to listen to 12 minutes of 4 different songs. So, which I think is perfect. Excellent. And then last question, we've touched on it already, but how do we know each other?
Yeah, I guess church and high school. I feel like more in the church realm. Covenant Presbyterian, and my mom worked in the kitchen with Miss Tracy for years. So
yeah, excellent. The Covenant Pres, going to Vestavia. Yeah, it's many lines of overlap there. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I feel like we've got a good picture of what you're about here. But let's start kind of at the beginning. How far back could you draw this line to where you are currently of, working in OBGYN? You said OB-GYN, and I don't know that I have the I don't know if I have the respect in the field to use the shorthand like that. So I'm gonna stick with what I know.
That's fine. I feel like I say it and I don't think anything about it, but your listeners would maybe find it as a weird terminology. But I guess really just thinking about when I wanted to become a doctor in general was in high school. And the real answer, and not anything I would say in an interview, is that I watched the TV show Scrubs. And I was like, that seems pretty cool. So I decided to do pre-med in college because I liked the TV show Scrubs, and went through with it and started at UAB and did not think I wanted to do OBGYN. I was like, women's problems just seems really like dramatic, I guess. And so that was me being misogynistic, I suppose. But really, OB-GYNs get to do it all. They get to do clinic, they do surgery, they work in the hospital, like on the labor and delivery floor. So there's really nothing that they can't do. And that's what I liked, because I liked everything in medical school and I didn't really want to give anything up. What I could give up was seeing men. So that's how we got into OB-GYN.
There you go. Excellent. Well, I do want to get into OBGYN, OB-GYN a little bit more, but I'm curious, were there other specialties that drew you in and kind of almost hooked you? And maybe if you had to pick one that wasn't OBGYN, what might that have been in an alternate universe?
Yeah, I think kind of up until like the final hour of having to decide, I was deciding between OBGYN and family medicine. I loved it. I love the breadth of the specialty. I felt like they can also do anything. If you want to deliver babies, if you want to work in the hospital and work in clinic, like you can do all of those things. What I was missing was like the surgery piece, which honestly, like at the very end of my 4th year, I did a trauma surgery rotation, and I was glad I didn't do it sooner, because I think if I had done it sooner, I would have ended up being a general surgeon. So kind of opposite ends of the spectrum between family med and general surgery. But I think I just love being in the OR so much that general surgery, if I had done maybe some more trauma rotations early on, I would have ended up in gen surge. So those were the two that I liked a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can hear a lot just your passion for like medicine that specifically applies to women. Is there anything that kind of brought that on for you?
I don't know if there was anything specific, and I don't really have like any personal story that made me love the field and taking care of women. I think they're just like a vulnerable population, especially when it comes to medicine. And even though maybe in our circles, women are becoming more and more empowered, which is wonderful, like that's so not true across so many populations. And I just feel like my family always taught me growing up, like, speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. And so that's just, it's no truer in any other field than OBGYN. And currently my patient population is mostly Hispanic. And so I feel like we get to play a huge role in their lives and getting to advocate for them and not having been able to make decisions for themselves in a hospital setting before. So getting to do that is really special, but nothing super personal, just wanting to, advocate for others, and women, I feel like, need it more.
Yeah, especially relevant right now, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and a lot of your experience in med school, in grad school, like would have been during COVID. So can you tell me a little bit about that? You had to, I'm sure, make a lot of pivots and a lot of changes, and had a very unique experience compared to somebody who would have gone through this a couple of years before. So what was that like?
Yeah. I guess it was during my preclinical years, when you're still doing a lot of the schoolwork part of medical school, that COVID happened. And so I feel like, if anything, it was just a little bit more isolating than normal, not getting to have like the social functions and the things that usually make medical school tolerable. Luckily, I ended up finding like a great group of friends, I feel like a couple months in, who we pretty much we did all of our studying together and, spent every moment outside of school we could together. So that kind of kept us sane, I suppose. And then once the vaccines came out and the school let us, as long as we were vaccinated, which we had to be, like do some more social things, like that was exciting. A lot of masking. But for the most part, I feel like I don't know what I missed out on, which
Sure.
is important. I guess you don't have the perspective, but so yeah, we got to do some stuff, but just not as much as other people.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Tell me, this is something that I've always kind of thought of, because growing up, I don't think that I fully grasped the scope of UAB as a medical school and just how, impressive it was as an institution. But tell me about your feelings of, being there, being from Birmingham and kind of going through all of that. I just feel like for me, I didn't understand until much later the I don't, I'm struggling to put together this question, but it seems like a unique thing to get to go to graduate school very close to home. So tell me about that. What were the feelings there?
Yeah, and let me know if you can't. My headphones died, but can you still hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't understand that at first either. Like UAB was just the medical school that was like close to me, and not realizing like what a national force they were and how much work they do. And so I think once I did realize that, it comes with like a lot of pride, and you tell anybody in the community that you're going to medical school at UAB, they're like, the amount of trust that they have in you and the rapport you build with someone, because everybody's had a family member that's been taken care of at UAB. And it's the number one employer in the state. And so like everybody has a connection. And I feel like I got to have in-state tuition, which was wonderful for like a top 30 medical school, which was really just fantastic. And the education I got and the like names that we got to learn from, who are huge in medicine. If anybody's family takes, an ACE inhibitor, lisinopril or something like that, like Dr. Opril is like worked at UAB. And so those are like the big names that you get to learn from. And so that was really special. And I feel like it wasn't until I don't know, maybe my senior year of college or into my first year of med school that I really realized that. Dr. Sag like revolutionized HIV care, and he just recently retired from UAB. So it's just like a wonderful name to have behind you. I find that even now, I wear my UAB lanyard with pride at work, and it stops people every now and then. Oh, did you go to UAB? And everybody seems to have a story. So yeah, it's really good.
That's amazing. I could see very much like that, wearing that as a, having that sense of pride in being from there, and from going through that, being surrounded by all of these sources for inspiration. Kind of in tune with that, are there other resources or places that you go to for inspiration? We've talked about, watching the medical shows, and that was something that kind of stirred up this desire in you. But like, are there other places, social media accounts that you go to for expertise, or to just kind of, I don't know, stir things up, like get you excited again, or anything like that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I feel like my answer even 3 or 4 years ago is so different than it is now. Because 3 to 4 years ago, everything was so focused on COVID and getting that out there. And so there were people like Syra Madad, and she's like more nationally known. And then more locally in Birmingham, Dr. Ellen Eaton, who I ended up doing research with in medical school. Like, those were the people who were really putting information out there. More recently, I feel like with the like kind of revolution of like Instagram Reels and TikTok, there's OBGYNs out there who are, practicing evidence-based medicine, who are putting their experiences out there as physicians, that really I get to follow along with and see them as like attending physicians, like spreading positive and good and factual information, which I feel like is really important. Because I feel like sometimes in medicine, you wonder, like, how is life going to be when I'm an attending, or am I going to still practice good evidence-based medicine when I'm an attending? And so getting to see that they do still put that information out there is really important. There's a couple that I like, and one of them's name is escaping me, but she works in New York, and she, has a list of practitioners now who are like self-submitted or submitted by patients, who will do like tubal ligations for patients. Because some people, I feel like older people won't do it on women who are, less than 25 or who haven't had a kid before, because they say that you'll regret it. And so she's like been a big force in putting names out there of people who will do it, even if you're 21. And even if the biggest side effect could be regret and something that you're willing to, face, then go ahead, still your decision. Dr. Honkin is her name, and she's on Instagram, and she's just like fun, and she makes OBGYN like a fun field that lots of women are attracted to, because typically it's not a fun field for any woman in the community. And so I feel like it's changed a lot. That was a long answer, but 3 or 4 years ago is very COVID related. And now I've drifted more into like the OB-GYN field and how people put it out there on social media, which is great.
Yeah. Have you found that much of like your algorithm and like the videos that are finding you, even like not the people that you follow, have to do with your work in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I even get the stories, like the horror stories of people's like labor, or the people who are like very anti like the practice of OBGYN, like those come across your feed too, because I feel like to my feed, I'm probably like a pregnant woman. I'm not like which I'm not, but like I'm not a practicing OBGYN. And so I get kind of like both sides, which is pretty interesting, because I kind of see where patients' fears come from when they come to the office.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine that as hard as it is for every bit of the stuff that you're consuming to all coming back to work in some sense, it's still good to get new perspectives and like different ways that people are relating to that. So I'm wondering now too. I totally lost my train of thought. I'm gonna get back there though. Tell me about the match experience and finding your way to Charlotte, because it's something that seems really intimidating. I've never gone through it. I've talked with a few people about it before. It seems like a really nerve-wracking thing, and you end up uprooting and relocating, and I hope that it went smooth for you. But if it
Yeah.
didn't, let's air it out here too.
Yeah. No, it was so fourth year, there are certain specialties, OBGYN is one of them, where they kind of recommend that you do some rotations out other institutions or other hospitals. And so I took advantage of that. And in my fourth year, came to Charlotte and I did a GYN oncology rotation here. And I loved it. And the people were very nice. And then I did another one in Knoxville, Tennessee, same GYN oncology. It was just kind of like the luck of the draw that I ended up getting two of the same rotations. And so going into the match, UAB was my number one, and then Charlotte was my number two. It's just Trey and I's families are both from UAB. I loved it there. I figured, why leave something that I know I'll like? But obviously there were other plans. And so we ended up matching at my number two, which is in Charlotte, where I am now. And I mean, number two is like fantastic. You can't really ask for anything better than to match at your number two, unless you're matching at your number one. So that, I feel like initial disappointment is always going to be there when it's not number one. But eventually you learn to realize why you're there. And so I'm so thankful now that I'm here and see maybe why I wasn't supposed to be at UAB, and have loved it. The people are great. I mean, the faculty here are so incredibly nice. I remember doing my fourth year rotation in GYN oncology, which is a very difficult surgical subspecialty of our field, worried that if I matched here that they were going to turn me into a GYN oncologist because they're so nice. So it hasn't happened yet, but it could.
Not ruling it out just yet. Yeah, no. We'll have to see. In your your experience, I don't think that you go through medical school without having some high achieving bone in you. But if there was something that you did struggle with that didn't come as naturally, that you had to like really work at, what would that have been?
That's a good question. I feel like it's kind of twofold. I feel like just trying to, just medical school in general, even for someone like me who's super social and can get along with really anyone, it is just so hard, especially in your third year, to just know that every move is being judged. And at the end of the rotation, you're going to get a score. And one of them is like clinical performance. And that doesn't mean that you saved someone's life or that you brought somebody back from the dead. It's, did you get along well with your team, and how much did people like you, and were you able to think critically in front of other people? And that is so hard. Like even for me, who I feel like I can do those things with ease. And the stress of it is really something that you don't experience anywhere else, unless you're maybe, I don't know, auditioning for Broadway or something. You have every day you have to put on your face and like have a good day to get the best grades and then to match at the best residency and so on and so forth. So I feel like there's that piece of it. I feel like too that, in medical school, at least for me, like my frontal lobe was still developing. And so as is for my whole life, I've always had a big mouth. And so like learning how to figure that out with like people who are important and like put my foot in my mouth a couple of times. And so that's something that I've struggled with in the past. And, you end up, at least for me, I ended up in the dean's office a couple of times, and that was my claim to fame, but nothing short of because I was advocating for other people. And so, it's kind of, you just have to learn how you're an adult, but you're still like a child in so many ways when you're still in school and even as a resident. And so like, those are just all things that are really hard to balance when you're not even 25 yet. So.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, and we've stepped into, the resident world. Is there, if you're kind of looking the other way and kind of advocating for people who are going through or mentoring these people who are going through what you've just kind of exited, what would you look to say? What's some good advice that you maybe would give them, things that they could make a priority to be successful or mitigate a bad time even? What would that be?
Yeah, I guess to be clear that no matter how many times I was in the dean's office, I still had a great time, and I'm not sure I would change anything, but maybe not the way that everybody wants to go. That's so hard. Every piece of advice that I would give is probably really individualized to the person. And so for some people, it's going to be, like really don't be afraid to speak out and ask questions and, challenge other people's points of view, because medical students do bring that piece of like esoteric information in that nobody else is thinking about, which is wonderful. At the same time, like learn how to work with your team, because being like antagonistic or someone who's not fun to work with is just not fun to work with, And so trying to do that and getting along with people is really a key part of it. And that leads into working with nursing, working with attendings in the future. You may not be friends like outside of work, but at work, like you want to have a good time and everyone else does too. And when you're working with residents, like that's their life and those are their friends and those are their people. And so just like trying to work well with them as best as possible is really important. But also medical school sucks. And if you want to do nothing but go to work and then go home and lay in bed and study, that is perfectly fine too. You don't have to be friends with everyone. So, I mean, there's pieces of advice for everyone. And I feel like whatever feelings people have are super valid. And I could probably find a piece of advice that kind of fits in with what they want to do anyway. Sure. But it's just kind of like survive. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, survive in advance. I could see that. Tell me a little bit about like day-to-day function for you. Like what is, like what is a normal like get up and go and come back home? What's in between look like for you?
Yeah. Well, in residency, similar to medical school, you actually kind of do a different rotation every month. And so it changes. And so when I'm on inpatient or like labor and delivery days, that means, getting to work at 5 to pre-round on my postpartum patients. So people who just had babies, and then be ready for board signing out all the laboring patients at 7, and then table rounding with the attending on my patients, the postpartum patients. And then you work all afternoon, seeing patients in triage, seeing patients on the floor, and then getting home at like hopefully by 6 or 6:30. And then get up and do it again the next day. So, anywhere from like 13 to 14-hour days. You could be on GYN oncology, which can be longer. Depending, there were some days I was getting there, 4:30 or 5. And then, similarly, you go until the work's done at the end of the day, not necessarily when the night team comes in. And so that can be, 6, 7, 8 p.m. So long days. And then night shift is the timing is more rigid. It's usually like 5:30 p.m. to about 7:30 or 8 a.m. the next day. So like 14 and a half hour shifts at night. But every rotation is different. So I'm on emergency medicine right now, and I just have like 13 or 14 sporadic shifts throughout the month. So, but yeah, and then I get home, and typically that means eating dinner and going to bed at like 8 o'clock. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, given all of that, it's apparent that you love doing this and you care very deeply about it, but it would seem like with how challenging it is and how draining it probably is, you've got to do things outside of work to, make sure that you stay sharp. So what are those things? Like, how are you kind of filling up your cup, if you will?
Yeah, I have big FOMO. I'm a big FOMO person. And there's a guy on TikTok, Dr. John, he's a 7th-year neurosurgery resident. And he recently made a video that I resonated with a lot. And he was like, I think having FOMO saves you in residency, because no matter how tired you are, you're like always willing to like go hang out with other people and see what they're doing and like want to have a good time. And so I think that has saved me. But more specifically, I try to go to my Pure Barre classes and then hang out with my husband Trey and our dog Sweet Pea just as much as possible. And that might just be like being in the same room together, or going to dinner or riding bikes or something, just trying to do something. But I think the FOMO piece has saved me, because I'll really never miss like a social event.
That's good. It's kind of self-fulfilling. You're like, all right, I have these feelings, and like that's gonna kind of motivate me to go do the things that are going to make me feel good like anyway, and help restore me. So it's good that you've got that system in place, that it just kind of helps. You don't have to make a lot of like extra effort. You're already motivated to go achieve these things. That's great.
For sure.
Well, admittedly, I'm starting to run out of questions, but thankfully I am, I have recruited the folks from our previous episodes to send a question to the next guest. So we've got a chain kind of going down the line. I've got a question from Sarah Kane, who was on last episode. And her question is, if you could only wear one outfit ever, what would it be? Just in perpetuity, you're like a cartoon character. You only get one outfit for the rest of your life. What would that be? Let's talk about it.
I guess it's, if I have to go like practical.
Go as practical as you want to. There are some elements of practicality that I think of. Like I would want to be, at least a little bit comfortable, but I also would want to express a little bit of individuality. I don't want it to be like straight up boring, but I don't know. It's so hard to think of, but I also think of like weddings and funerals too. Like how appropriate, like would it be for me to be sitting there in like a t-shirt and shorts? So I'm trying to find, I think it's really hard to find a balance of like, what could you wear every single day and it would be fine. A part of me wants to say like scrubs, like would be like a solid answer for a lot of people. Because I would think like even in a serious situation, like a funeral or a wedding, it's like, oh, they just came from work. Like you get to excuse yourself from any situation like that. So I don't know. What do you think?
I guess if we're going practical and they let me in the OR with like non-surgical scrubs, I would probably just wear a pair of like black big scrubs. So they're like nicer. They cover up stains and I could maybe go anywhere in them and they're comfortable. But non-practical, I love like a good fancy dress. Like, I don't know, anything fancy. Not too fancy, but anything fun. I don't know. And I would love to wear that every day because I love a dress and they're so comfortable, but not practical. Would not want to wear that to work, although I'm sure people have done it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think about like Miss Frizzle, as like she was wearing, like that was like the get up like every single time. Obviously she's wearing, like astronaut gear when they're in space and whatnot. But like for the most part, it was a dress like every day. Maybe reflected like the imagery reflected like the destination they were going to and stuff like that. But
I could see that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you seen the new version? It's like, it's not the original Miss Frizzle. It's her sister, and she's the teacher. I don't know how to feel about it. I watched like a couple episodes with my kids and they didn't seem to love it. So we went back to the staples for them, but
no, we have not seen it.
Yeah. I couldn't think of a reason for you to, but yeah, amazing. Well, I'd like to extend that opportunity to you now. What's a question that you'd like to ask to whoever comes next?
Oh yeah. I guess a question I always like hearing from people, and it's probably been asked before, is like, if you could do one thing, like another job, non-practical, like with your life, what would you be doing? My answer has always been that I'd be on Broadway.
Okay. Tell me about your Broadway experience. What do you envision when you think about an alternate universe where you're on Broadway?
Yeah, I think I always just loved the musical Wicked from when I was like in 4th grade. And I just always pictured myself as Elphaba. So this has been a big year for me. So
yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So, but yeah, big. I can't really sing well, and I cannot dance at the caliber of like a trained professional. So completely impractical, but still something I would love to do.
Yeah, amazing. I, for one, yeah, huge year for the Wicked fans. I had not really like listened to the soundtrack all the way through before. I was like super vaguely familiar with it, but then yeah, I saw it, and I was just like blown away. I was like, dang, this is really good.
So good.
But I could imagine like how much better it would have felt like as like a big fan, to have seen it. So yeah, huge win for the Wicked crowd this year. Amazing. Yeah, now I could totally see that. That's a fun one to think about. I like that question a lot too. I'm excited to ask it. Well, Channing, do you have any parting thoughts or questions or anything else before we close it down?
Oh gosh. I guess be nice to your doctors. They really are trying their hardest, unless you feel like they're not giving you good care. And then the flip side is advocate for yourself. I feel like I end up giving the best care when my patients remind me that they're an individual and not part of an algorithm. And so those reminders are much appreciated from the doctor, all while still being kind, and we can collaborate together. That's part of medicine, one part of medicine that I really like. And yeah, if you have any resident friends, reach out to them and ask them how they're doing, see if they need anything.
Yeah, but amazing. Awesome. Well, that's going to conclude the episode. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. You can, I don't know, usually I tell people if they have made it to the end of the episode that they can comment a certain emoji on the post. But I don't know if we have Scrubs emojis or not. Maybe we can just leave it to doctor or anything medical related as for there.
I think there is a doctor emoji.
There's definitely. I'm picturing very much somebody with a stethoscope. I know that much.
Something like that.
And I want to say a white coat, but like Scrubs, I don't know if anything's coming to me. I also don't have a lot of need for medical related emojis. I'm also not a big emoji like user myself. I've got like 3 or 4 that I keep in my bag, but that's about it. Excellent. Well, that's going to conclude the episode. If you made it this far, put anything medical related. The first one you find, put it on the post there. We would appreciate it. And thank you, Channing, for coming on, and we'll see you in the next one.